This episode of The Payload is brought to you in partnership with Legion by Lenovo and Intel. Find out more about Legion by Lenovo on Facebook and Twitter at Legion by Lenovo. Enjoy the show? Support The Payload on Patreon for exclusive content, access to game nights and giveaways, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/Payload Podcast to find out how you can get involved. Join our Discord community, find new friends, review VODs, and discuss esports and strategy on our Payload Podcast Discord at discord.me/Payload Podcast.
The podcast for heroes in the world of Overwatch. This is The Payload.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 68 of The Payload, which will in the future be known as the one that almost got away, but it didn't. We're here. We made it in time. Only 8 minutes late here in a lovely Denver, Colorado. Today is May 25th, 2017. I am John Horseman. With me is the crew. We've actually got a couple of guests on this week, so we're going to go ahead and jump straight to them. First, from an amazing caster, analyst, writer for the Overwatch esports community, it's none other than Josh Sideshow Wilkinson. Josh, welcome to the show, and hope you get some coffee ready, dude. I know it's really late where you are.
It's not too bad, 1 a.m. That's sounds about right. You got to put in the hours, and I'm happy to be here. It's a cool podcast.
That's esports for you. Late true. Nights and early mornings.
Early mornings. Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe. Anyways, we also have with us last minute as well. I literally, no joke, 20 minutes ago, I'm hanging out and I'm like, I want a fourth co-host here. Rosh couldn't make it. She had something come up last minute. So I'm like, I really want 4 people here for this episode with Overwatch Contenders and everything going on. So I sent Jamerson a message. I'm like, dude, can you come on? And he's like, yeah, sure. It's in like 2.5 hours, right? I'm like, it's in like 15 minutes because we're doing it a little bit early. He's like, I'm in. Send me the notes. Let's go. He's missing his workout for us. It's none other than Jamerson. Jamerson, welcome back, man.
It's not missing the workout. It's just delaying for now, and it's for a good cause. This is my third, fourth time being back. I always love being on the show, so whenever I can, I'm happy to be a guest for you guys.
We love having you on here, man. We love taking our esports analytics to the next level, and this week we're going ×2. Last but not least, Jimmy, you don't normally get to be introduced last, but you're last this week. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm really enjoying this event, and I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, the stuff that they've done in the arcade, I really, really like. So we'll be talking more about that, as well as all the esports stuff that's been happening. It's all of a sudden picking up like crazy. It's odd. The roller coaster of news for Overwatch esports is quite jolting.
I felt a lot of emotions this week when it's come to Overwatch, so I'm glad they're finally turning into really good positive emotions. So as we always do before we get started with this show, and we're going to jump in with Sideshow in just a few minutes and kind of get to know him a little bit better, just like we did Jamerson when it was his first time on the show. But before we do, we like to always just talk about what everyone's been up to this week in Overwatch, outside of Overwatch, and mainly in Overwatch. And yeah, so Josh, it's your first show, so you get to go first. What have you been up to in-game and out-of-game with Overwatch?
I've been catching up with all of the stuff that's been happening over in Apex. It's been pretty interesting to watch the ebb and flow of the games over there, see how the two teams, the two Western teams that is, are competing and going up with the new styles. I've also been prepping pretty hard for Takeover as well. Me and Bren, who are doing the casting for it alongside Uber and Jason Kaplan have been doing a lot more work. I don't normally do like really intensive practice for casting because my normal work is more in the writing side of it. But coming into a big event like that, we both felt that it was important. So I've been watching and practice casting tons and tons of games. I'm Overwatched out, man. Except not quite. You know, you've always it's like eating pudding. You've always got like an extra stomach where you can take some more Overwatch.
We call that in my family the pudding shelf, and the pudding shelf is never empty. So that's why I sit in a chair and talk about video games all day. So well, that's cool. I do have a question for you though. How are you practicing? If you don't mind telling us, how are you practicing for casting? You said you had just like VODs loaded up, or are you just practicing over different VODs?
Yeah, I mean, there's no replay system in the game, right? Yeah. So hopefully that's going to be a thing in the future. I mean, I really hope so. It certainly would make my job tons easier to be able to watch things from lots of different point of views as well, and not just what the casters are seeing or what's put out on stream. But that doesn't exist for the moment. So yeah, it's just a practice of like getting VODs that other people have casted over, muting them. Unfortunately, I have literally had to mute myself and Jamerson when we were doing redoing one of the casts of the Pit Championship. So, you know, you got to click that mute button and just do it again.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I might pick your brain sometimes about that. Aspiring. I'm like 2 years away, I think, for myself, but I would love to get into casting. And people ask me a lot on my stream, like, why aren't you casting? It's like, because I suck at the games that I podcast about. Podcast is where people go who have good voices but can't cast. So that's where I am. Jamerson, what about you, man? What have you been up to in and out of Overwatch? I know I sent you a message. We're arcading a little bit, and you were pushing that top 500.
You know, all these tournaments have come at a pretty good time. Filled a void in my Overwatch, I guess, schedule. Just this last week of competitive have been pretty bad in terms of just the amount of trolls that have come up. It just kind of happens, right? Last 2 weeks of competitive, people just start caring a little bit less. And so you're seeing a lot more offensive Torbjorns and some Metras. And so it's a good time to finally take a break from competitive. And, you know, with Take TV coming out this weekend, with we had the monthly Melee. And I also think we're having, the Rivalcade Rumble happening. There's plenty of Overwatch to watch. So if I can't play, at least I can watch high level play. So I'm really excited about all of that, and just doing general prep work, you know, super excited about Contenders and everything else that's been announced for like the rest of the year. Like I think there's also end of July, it's going to be the Apex Finals. I'm starting to make plans for that. I kind of want to go to Korea and watch it live.
Dude, that would be sick. Make sure to send it all to your Snapchat story for me, please, so that I can pretend that I'm there.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome, man. Well, Jimmy, what about you, man? We got to play a little bit this week together, and boy, did the salt come out on you, good sir.
Okay, so
I don't
know.
Funny.
Okay, I don't know if this is just just because I'm starting to get older or whatnot. I had like zero tolerance for BS, and you had said something about like how the match was going. And this guy just starts mouthing off about, oh, you see that thing at the top of the screen that has the percentage on it? That's why I jumped in. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, don't be condescending to us. Obviously, I said it in a little bit more offensive language than that. I mean, I just went from 0 to 100.
So dude,
I don't know why, but it was bad.
Okay,
it was really bad.
So dude is playing Mercy. Okay, he's playing Mercy. We're hanging out. I
was playing Mercy. He was Pharah, I think.
Oh, Pharah. Okay, dude's playing Pharah. We're coming up. We're getting stomped no matter what. But 90% left on the ticker. So that 90%. He jumps on then when we're all respawning and coming back for one last push. He jumps on by himself on the point. And he survived for quite a few seconds and then died in overtime after the rest of us are already on there, and starts mouthing off about how he saved overtime for us and all this. And I was just like, dude, you had like another 10 seconds. Anyways, so
the end of the story though is we won, so it didn't matter in the end.
We did win. Yeah,
I felt a little bad for mouthing off.
You know,
I don't know. I was tilted, man.
See, that's always difficult though, right? Because if it looks like you're losing and you have like a salt war with somebody else and then you end up winning anyway, both of you are just sat there like, I don't want to admit that like the other guy's playing well. So do you double down and just like be like, I carried your ass through this. What are you doing? Like make it even worse? Or do you like try and mend the bridge? I always go for the double down approach personally.
Yep. I will slash mute that at that point. I'm like, I don't even want to hear it anymore. We're just moving on. You're still an idiot. We just overcame your handicap. So anyways, as for me, I played a lot. I got about 65 hours of Overwatch in this week. So I've been playing as much as I can right now, and I'm trying really hard to just become a better Overwatch player and get that. And you know, the listeners, if you're new, Overwatch is my first PC shooter. I was professional in console with Halo 2, but it's a whole new ball game once you get to PC, you know? So I'm still learning that, putting a lot of time in, was really happy to get Diamond on my main account. And then I've got like my solo queue kind of learn new heroes account that I'm trying to like, you know, get better in that's not Diamond. And so played quite a bit of that, but we do have a couple of quick updates for the show, and then we're gonna go ahead, get to know Sideshow, and talk about what's going on in Overwatch. So first, we actually got Patreon 2.0 set up this last week, and I think it's really awesome. We have our own Payload Discord channel now with already 75 people in our Discord, and we haven't even really talked about it yet. So it's just people discovering through Twitter and referrals and stuff like that. Heading over to discord.me. Or sorry, I went from Patreon to Discord for some reason. Sorry. We have a new Patreon. New Patreon is up with new perks. We've got VOD reviews up as a potential perk for Patreons. We're going to be doing game nights. We're going to be doing lots of cool stuff there. So head on over to patreon.com/Payload Podcast. Find out all the new tiers there. We'll talk about it more in a week where we don't have two guests and want to hear them talk instead. And we have our own Discord, discord.me/Payload Podcast. Head on over there as well. That one, we already have 75 people in. We're grouping up. We're talking strategy. We're talking about tournaments, all that kind of stuff. It's been a blast. So come on and join us. So let's go ahead, jump in. I want to get to know Sideshow a little bit more. So on my soundboard, no joke, I had that sounder, but Katie said Skyline at the end of it from when we had Skyline on the show. And I had it on the board, and I found out 5 minutes before the show. So it almost just said Skyline for no reason at the end. It didn't. So, Josh, we've been talking to you a little bit. We know that you're a caster, you're writing for Overwatch. You're just kind of all around an Overwatch guru here. But tell us about your journey to get to where you are, your journey to Overwatch, if Overwatch hasn't been your first game.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't. I was doing a lot of the same kind of stuff that I was doing in Overwatch over in TF2 before Overwatch came out, and was a big fan of that game, involved very heavily in the community, doing all sorts of different stuff, casting, writing, organizing tournaments and stuff, liaising with sponsors, running LAN events occasionally as well, almost all of which were a unqualified disaster. But it was a very homegrown scene, so you got the opportunity to do it anything you wanted. I like kind of having my finger in all the pies, you know. I want to try out lots of different stuff. It's esports, right? You don't need a CV and a well-crafted resume and everything to do like small jobs in lots of different areas of whatever game you want to do. Most of the time, because it's such a developing industry, you can just kind of turn up, and if you have skills and you've got the drive to do it, then you can normally do almost whatever you want, which, you know, it has its positives and its negatives, but I definitely enjoy just kind of having a very spread range of jobs, I guess.
Yeah. So what drew you to Overwatch? There's a lot of the esports community is flourishing. You've got League of Legends, you've got Dota, you've got Hearthstone, you've got CSGO, you've got all these other games. Why Overwatch?
The games, in some sense, TF2 and Overwatch were, I mean, they certainly had similarities, more than you could draw to a different game. I was like an analyst as well in TF2, so I was a top player as well. I played on, at one point, the second best team in Europe, though I was a terrible player at all times. And it offered an opportunity not just to get in at the ground level and be able to do the kind of work that I was already enjoying doing in TF2, but to a much larger audience. But you could kind of translate some of the thinking, some of the processes across to Overwatch as well. And a lot of the players were making the move as well. And so that was a big thing for me, being able to trace storylines back from when they were first developing as, like, I don't know, some of them 16, 17-year-olds or whatever, playing TF2 for 4 or 5 years, really developing a personality and their take on the game. And you see that bleeding into Overwatch with the same kind of players of how they're playing it. Or you get the twists as they kind of mature and grow older as well. So it's been a case of following often friends, but mostly players and storylines into Overwatch as well.
Awesome. Actually, I honestly, going into this, I didn't know that you started in TF2. So there we go. Chat, you learned something today here on the Payload. Don't say we didn't ever teach you nothing. So I want to ask you one more question. And I didn't put this in the show notes, so don't worry, it's not anything it's kind of in the show notes, but you can't say Overwatch League. What are you most looking forward to with Overwatch this year?
This year, I mean, a little bit of like if you can't say Overwatch League, and Overwatch League is literally
you can say Overwatch League, that's fine.
I mean, I'm trying to tell you what, though, what I'm actually looking forward to, it's kind of bending the rules of your question because it's not actually, I don't think it's going to be coming towards the end of the year, but I'm most looking forward to actually how they work the off season of Overwatch League. Like, Overwatch League so far, they've laid out kind of a structure for, or at least put forward their plans for how they want it to work. But the only thing they've said for the off season, which could be almost the most pivotal part of the entire Overwatch scene, in terms of its health for everybody who isn't involved in a very exclusive OWL, is how they work this off season and how they work with other tournament organizers to make sure that there is some kind of circuit outside that. So that's, and the opportunity for the huge international tournaments that we might see if that's the case. Stuff like IEM Kangi could happen, multiple times with like much bigger tournaments at DreamHacks and things, MLG Vegas, but a Korean team comes over. This is the kind of thing that I'm really interested in, but I think that'll only happen, I don't know, maybe in like this kind of time a year on.
Yeah, it's definitely, we got Overwatch League in November, right, at BlizzCon. Came out of kind of nowhere, I think surprised most of us with it. And here we are, May 25th, 2017, and we don't know much more. We do know one new key thing this week that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. Jamerson, do you have any thoughts on, are you excited for that Overwatch off-season thing too? Like, is that just something inherent in you analysts and casters that's just like, show me the off-season, show me everything?
Well, the important thing about the off-season, Monty, he's been a veteran of esports for a very long time. So every single time he actually breaches the subject, he just hits the nail on the head. And he was pointing out the flaws in the League of Legends system, that there aren't as many of these international tournaments. You have mid-season invitational and then you have worlds, but we don't have as many IEMs and such take place to actually be able to gauge the strengths of all the different, all the different nations competing. And so I think during the off season, that should be the prime time for Blizzard to work with, like Sideshow had mentioned, outside parties, work with DreamHack, work with IEM, ESL, and everybody else to try and get some more of these international tournaments to go. Because when they do happen, they're pretty large affairs, and it turns a lot of heads to this new esport, which is what Overwatch needs more than anything else. It needs a lot more interest to be vested into it instead of just having the same kind of viewership in North America, in Korea, and in Europe. You need to be able to draw in a different audience at that point. And so the off season is going to be the prime time to be able to get those new viewers.
Interesting. Like, I wish that we could just stop the record button for a second. I can ask a bunch of off the record questions on stuff that you guys probably don't want to say publicly, in the sense that I've spent now
it's what BlizzCon's for.
Right. I've spent like 2 years now interviewing pro players, casters, analysts, and stuff, and unfiltered discussion, like what you're alluding to right there. I'm just like, I want in on that. Yeah, so that's really awesome. So before we jump into the news really quick, I just all right, I lied. One more thing, Sideshow, before we go into the news. And this is a genuine question, because honestly, before over.gg, I was lost in Overwatch Esports. I was lost. I was blind, leading the blind. I was down the river. I had no idea how to keep up with Overwatch Esports. You provide a good amount of content from over.gg and other websites. How do you stay up to date? Like, do you have any tips and tricks that you can give us for staying up to date on Overwatch, or is that like proprietary? I don't want anyone coming up and stealing my job.
It really isn't anything like, there's no secret to it. I would, if I had to give you a secret, I might say quit your job, stop doing everything else you love in your life. Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff that for me, I'm tracking the major tournaments that are going on, and I'm watching those. I try and watch as many of the what I would consider the smaller level tournaments, but are actually still quite large, because there are really tiny ones. I mean, like watching the monthly melees and like Rivalcade Rumbles and that kind of stuff that crop up, like the online stuff, is important to get a good sense of the lower teams coming up, the news and stuff like that. I mean, OverGG has been producing news for so long that there's kind of a bit of a network of the people who work for them, and then you get like the pro players and stuff. That it's all like a network of sources that you eventually get the information disseminated down, and sometimes you can break really cool stories or just be able to keep track of the scene. And the skill is being able to relay that to everybody else as well, because there is just so much going on all the time. We have a website in the back end that's like all of the potential stories that we could write, and there's always like way too many that you could potentially write about that you can't sometimes keep up with. I
will pay a monthly subscription to see those articles, even unfinished. I swear to God. Well, that's amazing. I'm at least relieved to know that outside of just dedicating so much of your time in your life, like Jamerson and Sideshow have done, that I'm not missing anything else. It's like, oh, actually go to overwatchesports.com and everything's right there for you. And it's like, nope, that's what over.gg is. Might as well be. So cool. Well, let's jump into the news here, man. We've got to move.
This week in Overwatch.
Before we do get started with the show, we want to thank our MVPs, Shadow, J.A., Carell, Liam O., Stuart J., and Leong Z. Thank you so much for your support of the show. Head over to patreon.com/Payload Podcast. And find out how you can get involved. Get on some of those new perks and tiers. So, we've got quite a few different things going on. First, we have the Overwatch Anniversary Event, and it's live now. We got a developer update interview. We got dance moves, which I've got playing right now. We got new skins, all that kind of stuff. Jimmy, it's been a while since you got to speak because we have the masters on the show. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the new Overwatch Anniversary Event? There's been a lot going on with it.
I think it's really cool. Like any other event, there's some really cool skins and items that they release here. I'm a little worried that I'm not going to be getting the dance emotes that I want because they're all epic. So I'm feeling that I'm going to be having a hard time grabbing those.
$50 can solve that for 40 loot boxes.
I know. Yeah.
I got 12 of them and I feel pretty good.
There you go. That and the player icons, because they can't be crafted at all, which is a shame. So we'll see. But the skins look really cool. I like probably about half of them. The other half are kind of hit or miss. But the Bastion one, I didn't like it at first, and then I saw it in game last night, and I was like, okay, that skin's actually really, really cool.
Yeah, they did an awesome job, I think, with some of these ones. So before I get Jamerson and Sideshow's thoughts on the new league. Have any of you been trying to like be super meta and choose a player icon that's not your main so that they don't think like, cause like I'm a Zarya main. I play a ton of Zarya. I've got almost 150 hours on Zarya at this point. And so I really want to put the Zarya icon there, but you know that that's a Sombra icon on my thing. Are you guys metagaming that at all?
No.
No. Okay.
For myself personally, no. I'm a huge fan of the Pachimaris. I'm just a huge fan of the Pachimari. So anytime there's a new Pachimari portrait, that's gonna be it. That's gonna be my thing.
Is there a new Pachimari portrait? I might have missed it.
There should be a golden Pachimari.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even see Jamerson. This is why we need you on every week. You can just do this. So, Sideshow, what are your thoughts kind of on the anniversary event? Are you a fan of the new dancing skins? Is it helping your BM game at all after a huge quad kill?
Dancing is always an excellent BM move. I feel like that's a fantastic thing, just to literally style on someone once you killed them.
Yes.
And like teabagging's really old school. You can just dance on someone's head now. You literally dance on their grave.
Oh, that's good. We need those for the next Overwatch anniversary when people die. Not anniversary, Halloween. When you die, you have like a tombstone and then you just dance on. That might be disrespectful. I don't know. So are you guys, this is how like BM I am. This is how competitive I am. I'm like, I will dance on your grave. Anyways. So there's been a lot going on. We've got new dance moves for all the heroes. Really great. They're epic. So there's 750 credits to craft, but they're the only epics as far as I've seen for the entire amount, right? So there's no other epics. We didn't get any new player intros for this because we got all of the dance emotes. We've got new skins as well, which, you know, there's some really amazing skins. I'm going to go out and say it right now. The new Diva skin might be the best skin, in my opinion, they've ever made. Might not be the one that I like the most, but like creativity, the dice on the gun, absolutely amazing. We've got new maps and new arcade modes with limited dual elimination and lockout. Jimmy, what's going on with those?
Yeah, so this is an update to the 1v1, 3v3 modes in the arcade. 1v1, they're upgrading it now to limited duel, which I really like. I actually played this earlier today, and it really helps Let's Just Go players like myself, I guess, metagame it a little bit better. But basically, you're given 3 different heroes. Both players are given the same 3 heroes, and you select one of them. So you can try to counterpick what they're doing, but you might just end up with a mirror match. But it's actually really cool, and I really enjoy how it's played out so far. But yeah, it's really cool. And then the 3v3, almost kind of taking a page, I feel like, from the Esports Arena matches that they had for the 3v3 tournament, where you select any combination of heroes you want, but as soon as you win a round with them, those heroes are locked out for you for the entirety of the match. So it really forces you to be flexible and to be able to, you're going to have to play on heroes you're not comfortable with, which I think will help players be better at the game, but also make for more fun 3v3s.
So Jamerson, we've seen quite a bit with Overwatch, and the Overwatch teams being unwilling to implement like a true like 4v4 Halo 2 Slayer style type of elimination game. But this new lockout elimination seems like a really cool way to Overwatchify that game type. Do you think that might be kind of what we're looking at in the future? I know, didn't you cast some of the 3v3 stuff at Esports Arena?
Yeah, so I was hosting it, and I believe it was Sideshow and not Sideshow, excuse me. Sorry, just Sideshow on the mind. Anytime. Yeah, it was initially it was for the 3v3, it was Bren, and Joshi for the 3v3s. So we had Bren and Ask Joshi for that. The 1v1s were Slasher and Bren. But for the 3v3s, we did have the one-use hero limit rule. Once you used it, it was just gone. But that was a little bit too punishing for teams who actually lost using a certain hero. It punished you way too hard just for using them. So I think this lockout mode is the best answer. Is essentially what I wanted when we were pushing forward with the project, to have this format. Instead, the logistics behind it and making sure teams could track it properly was a little bit difficult, because during the actual tournament, we just had them have a PDF open, click off what you use, and then from there, that was your best way to track it. But now it's built in, it makes it so much easier. And I think from the responses that we got from Blizzard, they were very happy with it too, seeing that format happen, instead of consistently seeing, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Ana, and so 76 come out in whatever iteration of that composition. Now this is going to be forcing, players onto much different compositions, having to dig deep into their hero pool. We saw during the Agents 3v3 tournament, really interesting compositions coming out, like throwaway compositions like Sombra, Hanzo, Widowmaker, right? These heroes that have difficulty being built into one cohesive unit. Just throw them all together in this mishmash of, there's a huge threat, there's no sustain, but it's feast or famine at that point. You either win or you lose. And if you lose, it's not too bad, because you're already going to have a difficult time trying to work them into another composition. So I'm really glad that, the Blizz team, Team 4, took the onus upon themselves and actually started to refine 3v3s and 1v1s more. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Trevor May, MLB player, he's been doing Minnesota a lot Twins, of 1v1. He's been doing a lot of 1v1 and 3v3 tournaments. I don't know if you've caught them on his own Twitch channel, but he funds them himself, has been running them for a few weeks now, and he's super excited about this. So, I'm excited to see what he can start doing moving forward, especially with this new mode, and see if there's any more interest in the community at large for 3v3 and 1v1 tournaments.
I may or may not be a Trevor May sub. I'm just saying. I'm a huge fan of Trevor. I usually host him after my streams, and so he's hosted me back a couple times. So I'm always a fan of a Minnesota Twin. That's baseball for Sideshow across the pond playing.
Wait,
real
is this going to be a baseball podcast too?
Yeah,
like,
right?
Well met.
Is that like Rounders? That's a little girl's game, Rounders. That's what it is, isn't it?
Oh, man.
Fair enough. Well, anyways, that's going on. We do have some new patch notes. We discussed the patch notes when they hit the PTR a few weeks back, so we're not going to hit that too much. We did have the Overwatch Anniversary live stream event yesterday, which everyone thought was codename for Doomfist reveal. Well, it never was communicated that way or anything. It was just like a really fun celebration of 1 year of Overwatch. It's at, Josh, you can probably correct me on this. It's at where the Take TV tournament will be this weekend.
Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Is that how it works? Well, yeah, it's from the 1st to the 4th, so it's not actually like purely on the weekend. It's from the Thursday to the Sunday. I just had to check that myself.
Got it.
I've got 1st to the 4th in my head, but not the days.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So coming up very soon. So it was there. They had a bunch of the biggest streamers and YouTubers and personalities in Europe over there hanging out, and quite a few. They did a nice little developer interview with Jeff Kaplan, which was, whenever you get Jeff on camera, it's always cute, right?
Yeah.
So
I just want to say something real quick about it. I had no clue it was happening until you mentioned it in our Discord, like 20 minutes before it happened, I think. Like, there was no promotion for this at all, I feel like. It was weird.
But I think they didn't promote it for the exact reason that Reddit blew up when they found out that it was just a fun stream. That's all it was. They're like, why are these streamers on here? And they're like, because that's what the Overwatch team said it was going to be when they communicated it very subtly. So that did go on. Nothing big happened. IGN also did come out with a really interesting series on the different Overwatch hero. about the different Overwatch heroes and the different, I guess, roles that they play. And so there's 4 different installments, one for support, defense, tank, and offense. It features some exclusive and never before seen footage about some early play testing and beta type stuff. So it was really cool to watch. Make sure to check that out. But I really want to talk esports. Can we just talk esports for a little bit? So first,
let's do it.
The Overwatch Monthly Melee has finally concluded after a few days of technical difficulties, few hiccups and things like that. This is the last Overwatch Monthly Melee, and we were left worried about, well, what big tournaments are we going to get on a consistent basis? We'll be talking about that soon, but it was the last one, and yikes, that wasn't a mistake. That's actually the name of the team. Yikes upset Selfless Gaming 3-0. Josh, I know you've been hanging out watching this before the show because you're a night owl. You stay up late now to watch all these tournaments. It's like it's your job or something. Do you have any sweet hot takes on yikes as a team and this result that we saw where Selfless is really well respected, not just on the regional teams, but in the world? I believe, didn't you have them ranked at, was it yours or Admirable's ranking that was number 9 on over.GGG?
Yeah, they were ranked 9th. Based on like the way that our world rankings work is that it's not like current form so much, is based over how they've actually rated and who they've beaten over the past 2 or 3 months. So yeah, I mean, Selfless are definitely a top team, and when Rogue were around, they were taking them incredibly close, and Rogue were basically dumpstering everybody else. Selfless seem to be struggling a little bit as the rise of Farah Mercy has happened much more recently. Teams are starting to run that way more. It's not that it's been in any sense buffed, although I guess you could point it to the recent patch. When was it? Yesterday or last night or something? That ticked the soldier thing from 20 down to 19 per pellet. I mean, it's a very minor change. I like it because it's so incremental. I much prefer this as like a design philosophy, and I don't think we're now gonna, like, that isn't such a big difference that Farah Mercy is now overpowered or something. But it's certainly this kind of thing, and just the viability of so many compositions and certain maps being so good for Farah Mercy. And Selfless are a kind of team that have really struggled with that for a while, and I think have run up against some teams that they just can't deal with.
So in your opinion, is this more about Selfless and the way that they're set up versus the meta? Or do you think that Yikes is just a really good team that's going to be able to contend going forward, even if Farah Mercy goes away?
Yeah, for sure. Yikes are actually creeping into the top tier that's currently competing in North America as well. You have to kind of add the caveat that the 2 big dogs from North America are actually elsewhere, and I don't think Cloud9 were playing in this monthly melee or whatever, but they're starting to get up there, and they're a team a bit like CLG or potentially even Evil Geniuses, though I think they flopped in a tournament recently as well, haven't quite reached that potential. But they are for sure a very good team, and their recent addition, Space, has been a fantastic addition, because before they made that roster swap, I feel like they were like starting to have potential, but they hadn't reached it at all. And they were playing with a guy called Silk Thread before, and he was a fantastic tracer. But now they've made some swaps and put Dante over on the DPS role, and it's really worked for their team. It's been like a blossoming.
Awesome. I have another question. So I'm sure you casters and analysts are probably sick of hearing this question asked, but every time NRG is in a tournament and they lose, there's always that Jamerson's face was priceless. He's like, yeah, here it comes. So Jamerson, I'm going to put this one on your lap. NRG did not do well in the monthly melee. I believe they got eliminated in groups, right? Or qualifiers. Doing that. Qualifiers. Are they going to make a comeback here? Do you think it's just some different, they're just getting used to their new roster? Obviously Seagull no longer part of the picture, lots of new players on the team, lots of moving pieces. Do you have any thoughts on kind of energy and the state that they're in?
I mean, consistently, we're always going back to, I guess, at this point, it's a trope now. Energy are still adjusting to their new roster, but at some point, you have to figure out that there is a larger overarching problem, right? They have continued to try and like piecemeal put this team together, but in any iteration, this hasn't looked too solid. Teams that are still like up and coming, like CLG and EG and everyone else, are performing pretty darn well against them, and they just haven't been able to like find their footing whatsoever. It like pains me to say this because, you know, I have a really close friend that's been working with the team, Seamoose, working as their coach now, and I've had a lot of faith in him, especially, you know, during his time with Method and Tempo Storm. He was really was able to build up those teams, but now, you know, he's gotten all these really big names and a lot of like cards in his deck, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to build this roster to find the success. It's also, you know, just coming down to the fact that the teams that I mentioned, CLG, EG, X-Denial, now Yikes, and Selfless, just performing better and better. As we can see, like right now, Yikes having won this monthly melee, they looked stellar. Every single player looked like a star player at that point. You had Za going off on Space, the newest additions, doing really well too, and Dante just adjusting really well to his change of roster. It's a lot of moving pieces that, as an analyst and as a coach, if you're trying to build a team, it's very difficult to try and build your team around all these, against all these other rising stars. And so hopefully they find something, but it's not looking too good for them right now.
All right. So Sideshow, what about Immortals? Immortals was coming in. Honestly, they've been always one of the top teams, and they also didn't make it out of group stages. They went 1 and 2. Now they did have a tough group. They had a Selfless Gaming and CLG both in that group. But do you think Immortals is doing okay, or do you think that they might be in trouble going forward?
Immortals are a bit of an odd team. They swapped in Verbo before the winter premiere and managed to kind of dominate that. They just stayed in first place the entire time, went into the playoffs, smashed it. Then they went into a bit of a slump, and they were playing in the Carbon series, and they looked like they'd lost some of their form and managed to get it together towards the end and took like a second big or relatively large tournament. But they've always been kind of the layer below like your real top teams in North America, I think, of like Rogue and Envious, this type of thing. But they have a trend of dipping in smaller tournaments and being able to pull it together for the big stuff. I think they're also struggling with the Pharah Mercy. They've had like a fairly historic problem with that and how they're playing it. I think for a lot of these teams, it comes down quite a bit to the patch changes and adjusting to the different tempo of the game and how that affects your leadership and these kind of things. Because when you've got like, for the teams that came to the forefront of North America back in quad tank or triple tank meta, we're talking like late 2016 or January 2017, the teams that are coming to the top then and really starting to prove themselves in like the winter premiere and things like that, it was a slower pace of the game, very much around ultimates, about good coordination with like tanks that are playing around each other. This current meta, very much more high tempo. It's about taking positioning really early, being able to focus targets very well, having very clear and decisive initiations onto people. So it's almost a different skill set that you have to be able to like add to your repertoire. So I think teams are adjusting not so much to any roster changes or stuff that they've made, but trying to adapt to the change in pace of the game. And sometimes as well, you just don't have the pieces to be able to adapt. Like if you're a team that was really good in a completely different meta, then maybe you do need to change something up. Maybe the guy who's calling for your team just can't get his head, like wrap his head around how the game is currently played and how the switch has happened. Or you have a guy that prefers playing, Roadhogs or that kind of off tank rather than the Diva or flexing onto a DPS hero instead. These kind of things can really hurt teams as they go up and down. Immortals have been about the only team though that's been able to go through slumps and get back up to the top, so I'm not too worried about them. I think it's more so that the other teams around them, people like CLG and like Yikes and even Liquid and Tempo. I mean, there's so many of these teams that have actually been a lot better recently. So for them, it's just that they're not moving forward as quickly as everyone else. So the rest of them are catching up, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, and to actually add to that, Immortals is starting to add on more support staff, and I know they've been running their application interview process and filling out more of the coach and analyst roles and really adding on to that. So, as these teams are sticking around, for the Overwatch League and they're adding on the support staff, it'll just get better. And yeah, like Sideshow had said, they've always had this weird flux, right? Where they could be performing top notch when it comes down to like quarterfinals and semis and grand finals, but during the regular season they might have weird results. But they're a team that are adjusting, that are still learning, that they have the skill sets necessary, I believe, to perform still at basically right below tier 1 and eventually make their way up to match up against Rogue and Envious.
Cool. Jamerson, last question for you, then we'll kind of move on. Do you think that Yikes is for real? Do you think that they I don't want to say deserve to win the tournament in the sense that because they're new for some reason, but do you think that they have the skills on that roster to repeat the type of performance that we saw this past week?
When it comes down to individual plays, every single player was just playing out of their mind on the side of Yikes. We saw Za, anytime that they were able to pull out the pharmacy, was just consistently landing those shots and being that huge threat in the sky. Dante, every time he was on Tracer, was making great plays. XQC, if he was either on Reinhardt or on Winston, he was consistently engaging, but engaging in a safe way that opened up, other people to come in and become the damage threats for his team. And like his aggression really forced out really bad plays from the opposition. And that's where like the windows of opportunities were being created. Dahoon and Ginger Pop both doing a really good job of staying alive for the most part, especially Ginger Pop once he got onto the Mercy, who was just so slippery, I think was the consistent adjective that was used when describing his Mercy play and space, being brought on in the last few weeks has really helped them out. Here's the thing, like we were talking about energy earlier and how they're consistently adding in and changing out new players and they haven't had consistent performance because of that. Well, this is the same thing that Yikes has been doing. They've added on Za, I believe, towards the beginning of April or end of March. And they've been, trying out different players. Like Silkdart was on there for a little bit. And finally, they found a place where they were able to stabilize and perform really well. And every single one of their players are just really exceeding expectations at this point. And especially, after having just lost your support in having an organization behind you, I think that's driven them more to play a bit more aggressively, to show their hand a bit more. And they get to play this go for broke style instead of playing safe because you want to appease your sponsors, appease your organization. And I think they are completely deserving of this one, especially seeing how they were able to perform up against Selfless. A lot of people, were expecting Selfless to be the heavy favorites moving into this month's monthly melee, but Yikes show up and Sinatra was getting shut down. Defran wasn't able to be as impactful as he usually is. Emong, even though he had some, brilliant moments on Roadhog, just wasn't the same impactful player that we get to see him on. And so Yikes just did a fantastic job, and yeah, they deserve this win.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that because I've been really conflicted about it, and with both of you being so hyped up on Yikes as a real contender at this level, I think is amazing. So make sure to go follow, check out the VODs for the monthly melee. It was a great last month to go out on. The monthly melee is going away. You can find it at twitch.tv/curse. You can find the VODs there. I'm sure you can find them on YouTube somewhere as well. But it's definitely a great one to go out on. And we're going to miss the monthly melee as it's their last one, but we do have something new here. Introducing the Overwatch Contenders League. This is the development league for aspiring Overwatch League professionals. It's taken straight from the website. I didn't make that up. I promise that's what it says. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, well, what the heck is the Overwatch Contenders League and what does it entail? Here's the basics. For Season 0, which is the one that we have coming up starting on June 3rd, I guess, for the NA region, the stuff it's going on right now for signups and things like that. And I went and I counted. There are almost 1,000 teams signed up as of this morning for Overwatch Contenders. Season 0 is NA and EU only. There's no restrictions on teams, and teams must be Masters Plus going forward. So in Season 1 onward, your teams need to be Masters Plus. And also for Season 0, there's going to be no offline portions. Season 1s will have an offline playoff. The purse, I guess, for this tournament is $50,000 per region, which is pretty neat. Here's a quick breakdown on the stages, and then we'll start talking a little bit more intimately about what's going on with the Overwatch Contenders League. First, we're going to have an open qualifier that starts on June 3rd through 5th and June 10th for 11th for NA and EU respectively. Respectively. Yeah. Oh my God. This is
You got it. You got it.
You got it. I believe in you.
Thank you. All right. So the interesting part about this one. So we're actually going to see Immortals, Selfless, Team Liquid, and LG Evil for NA, and E United Movie Star Writers, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Misfits in EU get priority seating into this group. The second part is going to be a group stage. That's going to happen a week after the EU portion. So starting on June 17th and 24th and 18th and 25th. And that one is actually going to have Cloud9 in it automatically, which is going to be interesting. So the group stage is the top 16 and technically the top 17 if you include Cloud9. And then you're going to have playoffs happen July 1st and July 2nd, which is going to be the top 8. They're going to be best of 3 single elimination. Quarterfinals are going to be best of 5. Finals and semifinals are going to be best of 5. And finals are going to be best of 7. So when Overwatch League was initially announced, they discussed the league, but they also discussed this developmental league, this way for teams in the league and players wanting to get in the league, developing a direct track into that, not just hoping you get lucky. It's not like the movie star type of thing where you're serving at Starbucks one day and then you're making out with Emma Stone the next. That doesn't happen for Overwatch League. Instead, you actually have a route to go, which is kind of nice. So if this is, well, let's talk a little bit about the different things. So the open qualifier being open first. Jamerson, what are your thoughts on Season 0 being just a totally open, anything goes qualifier? Does that seem justified for the first kind of jump into Overwatch League?
In the spirit of how they were initially presenting the Overwatch League, you know, with Serena Williams and this could be your name or whatever, I think it fits, right? Just leave it open to anyone who wants to actually try and compete. You will actually be able to see if you're actually, you know, a GM rated player, but only playing in gold because of your teammates, right? If those come to fruition or not. But
the true test.
Yeah, it really is. But one of the most interesting things is that what I'm enjoying so far is just reading the team names as they are like starting to register for these. Like the memes are real. Yeah, the memes are so real, and I've been enjoying it so far. But it is important, right? You don't want to limit like your initial launch of this league to just the already established names. You do want to be able to discover new talent. And if you take a look at players like Grim Reality, you know, he said this was his first, you know, computer FPS, he hadn't played one before. There are a lot of people that are making the transition on over to Overwatch, and they don't have
you made
the
me
proper
feel
FPS
a lot
experience.
worse, by the way. I'm like, oh, grim. I could be Grim Reality instead of John.
Yeah, but instead of
gold.
that being your name, you being Crusher 99, you can be Grim Reality, and I think keeping in line with that spirit of anyone can make the transition on over and have this avenue to actually make it into professional play, I think it's really important. The only thing that's a little bit muddy here is just how that transition from Contender to Overwatch League is going to work, but that's something that could be, fleshed out later on.
Sure. So, Sideshow, one of the things that we're learning about is you've got priority seating for already established organization, and one team, Cloud9, going just straight to the group stages. And I would love to hear your thoughts first about the priority seating part of the Overwatch Contenders League. How do you think that is a fair advantage to give these professional teams, and why? Well,
here's the thing. You don't actually know what priority seeding means as well. If you've
fair.
got 1,000 teams signed up, is that 1,000 teams? I haven't actually looked at the numbers. Is that 1,000 teams for each region, or is that 1,000 overall?
That's total. So I went. There was like 387 on NA and almost 500 for EU. So I'm assuming that we crossed 1,000 by the time that we've got this.
So if you imagine that you have your 500 teams sign up for North America, right? So you're doing a completely open bracket. So the logistics of this mean that you have to run. I mean, they didn't even realize, it seems, that they would get this overwhelming amount of teams signing up for it, because they've had to make some adjustments to the schedule. So even Blizzard, it seems, didn't quite understand like how fanatic people are about getting involved in this. So, but the logistics of it are mad. And this is why large tournaments don't normally run massive open qualifier things like this. Because for starters, not that many people would sign up to normal tournaments. It's because this is like a Blizzard thing and to do with Overwatch League and push so hard that so many people are interested. But that aside, you've got 500 teams signed up to this North American side. So you need a bracket, a single elimination bracket with a round of 512. Because that's how like your powers of two work, right? You're starting with the final and you're moving upwards. You get to your quarterfinals. These are the people who are going to qualify, and you're building outwards and you suddenly you've got an enormous pyramid. So what does priority seeding even mean in that context? Does that mean you get a bye through the first round if not too many people have signed up? Does that mean that they're going to place each of these 4 teams in different arms of the bracket so that they can't meet each other? That to me is what should be happening as well. That's how I would do priority seeding. For the other thing to consider as well is that if you have a round of 512 and you have to get into the quarterfinals to be able to actually get through, what you're essentially doing is running 8 separate tournaments of 64 teams where you have to win that arm of 64 to be able to get there. Thorin, when he talks about this kind of stuff, refers to an amazing analogy of it being an aeroplane, and so the top teams in this sense being airplanes that have to go through masses of birds to be able to get to where they're trying to go. And any tiny little bird can take you down if you're like having a slip up in form or whatever. And so in that sense, it's like a minefield that you have to navigate to be able to get to the end, which introduces like an element of variance to it as well, which is interesting to think about as well, especially because some of these teams that haven't been given priority seeding, for example, Cyclone, or they're now called Cyclowns, which is a truly horrible name. They need to find an organization or reverse that or something, because it just makes me vomit every time I think of it. But Cyclowns have not got the priority seeding and are probably at this point in time, I mean, they've just made a roster change, but prior to that, they were about the second best team in Europe. This team hasn't been given priority seeding. Instead, like Ninjas in Pajamas have, who aren't really up there anymore, or at least haven't demonstrated that recently. So there's the very strong potential for them to just get randomly seeded and meet somewhere in like the round of 64. And because it's single elim, you don't get an opportunity. Like there's no way around that. They just meet in the round of 64 against like Misfits or something. One of them gets knocked out, and that's it. You finish 64th but there was all of these teams above you that you would have been able to beat. So it's like it's an inherent flaw just in the way that tournaments work, right? And that's why people have double elimination, and that's why it serves the purpose of, certainly you could see like really rising talent, but at the same time, there's so much luck involved in how your bracket actually runs out. It's like a minefield of trying to dodge the actual good teams to be able to get to the end. And in a sense, even if you are a good team that you really want to be able to invite and get into the tournament, yes, you have to make it open to allow those in for the first place. But there's every likelihood they might just meet another good team in the round of 64 and end up getting dropped out. So it's a sticky situation. We could well see, like, I think the top 8 teams are still going to be really good, but you might not see the literal best top 8 teams if there was any objective way of measuring them.
That's really interesting. So the way that I read this, right, is so you played the whole tournament on whatever, Saturday, and then you do it all again on Sunday. Do you not? Like, you do it the next day, and the losers get the basically the losers are top seed on the second day, right? Is that how it works, or did I misunderstand?
Well, that's kind of how it works, but as far as I'm aware, they don't actually use the seeding all the way through from the first day. They just use seeds 9 to 16 to do the top 1 to 8 of the next day. So you've kind of got the same system again the second day, except you've removed the top 8 teams, and you've just given the next 8 teams your priority seeding. Now that's 8 teams rather than, 4 or something that they start with priority seeding. Sure. So you've got a slightly more balanced tournament, but in the end, you've got like 2 large tournaments that are sifting through. So yeah, there are checks and balances in place to try and make sure that you have the best teams coming through. But it is going to be still a bit of a minefield. There could be some surprises in there, and I mean there are kind of pros and cons to that. I'm not 100% like, I don't think that it'll end up with you actually having the objective best teams there. But it'll be a spectacle. It allows everybody to get involved. It has a great sense of actually having this direct route inwards. Right. And if you're the best, you're going to get through. Like, it's only if you're not literally the best or having a dip in form or something that you're going to get beaten. So the teams who are absolutely phenomenal should be able to get through.
You're just kind of like giving us a statistical bell curve here, where if you're talking about, 1,000 matches over a weekend, eventually there's going to be outliers of
definitely.
One team beats another one that they shouldn't have normal, but it's an outlier, right? I come from Hearthstone. I do a Hearthstone podcast. We talk about Hearthstone. That's a card game that's 60-40 at its most polarized, right? So we're used to hearing that all the time, whereas with a game like Overwatch, it's probably not quite that much.
Yeah, but Baby Flame in chat actually made a really good analogy to how this is going to be, where at EVO every year, it's the big fighting game tournament in Vegas every year, the pools are just ginormous, like upwards of thousands of people, and they basically break everyone into pools, and established players get placed in this priority seeding, like sounds like similarly to what they're going to do with Overwatch here. And it's just crazy because occasionally you hear some big name gets beat by some nobody in pools, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what happened? Because they can't stream all the games. But this will be really exciting. It'll be a little frustrating, I think, for some teams, definitely, because there's going to be some names eliminated a lot earlier than we feel like they should be. But yeah, the priority seeding should prevent those teams from having to place each other too early on in the bracket and give them a better chance of basically advancing to the group stage than they normally would if they, because you don't want your first round to be Immortals versus Selfless. I mean, you're like, you do not want to eliminate one of those teams that early on in the bracket.
Unsubscribe.
I mean, it could be. What could it be? It could be the first round could literally be CLG against Yikes. Or something like that, though, because these teams don't have priority seeding. I mean, it would just be completely random. And in a sense, it doesn't matter whether you get that matchup in the first round or in like the round of 64, because it doesn't affect the seedings for the next day. It's just like unlucky. But teams, when they get the bracket, should be able to literally look at like their path through and see if there's any major obstacles. And if there aren't, then it's just about having that level of consistency where you're able just to reset after every game and make sure that you're playing at your A game and you're not going to get upset by like pebbles in your path. But if you look at your path ahead and there's a major team that you're aware of that hasn't been given priority seeding in the way, I mean, there's going to be like major choke points in these brackets that are going to be super interesting to track and see how they work.
So, Sideshow, what's going on with Cloud9 then? So they just get to go straight through to the group stages, and you kind of talked about before about, you know, at least on the EU side, those 4 teams getting priority seeding aren't necessarily the completely objective best 4 teams in EU. Well, we've seen Cloud9 play, and don't get me wrong, they've got an awesome roster, but they are not better than most of those NA teams either. Is that an unfair advantage? Is that just because with the tournament that they're playing in right now, it's just an extra accommodation, or is this kind of an unfair advantage to them going forward?
I mean, it's definitely because they're playing in Takeover at the same time, right? Like, that's the whole reason for it. They can't actually play on the 3rd or the 4th because they're in a Takeover in Germany. And because that's a Blizzard-sanctioned event, I mean, first of all, it's slightly weird that the 2 would even, in a sense, be running at the same time.
Right.
These are the kind of scheduling things that you would hope would be avoided in with Blizzard being strict in who they're handing licenses to and making sure that they have a hand in how all the tournaments run. But I get the feeling that when you're running something this size of like the Overwatch Contenders or the Overwatch League, having things pushed back or delayed in a sense or overlapping with other things is essentially unavoidable because you have so much infrastructure at work. And this is like their way around that. So you only have 1 North American team actually competing in Takeover. And instead of just saying, you're screwed, like these 2 things overlap and now you can't do anything about it, which happens quite frequently in the CS scene actually, because they have so many tournaments running all the time and Valve doesn't take an interest in how they plan them necessarily. Blizzard are being kind of very generous by saying, right, well, we know that you're a top team. We're going to recognize that. We're handing out like a free pass to you because we believe that you're of the caliber. Certainly, I mean, you can't even argue that Cloud9 are not a top 16 team in North America, I don't think. So it makes sense that they would be in the group stage. I don't think it's unfair in that sense that they don't deserve it. But, you know, they get to avoid the minefield. So, you know, there's a plus.
Right.
It's a pretty sweet deal for Cloud9, I have to say.
And honestly, like seeing it from Blizzard's point of view and Take TV's point of view, last year's Take TV, right, was the first Overwatch LAN after launch. It was all EU. It was expected to be all EU, and then Cloud9 got invited in, and they accepted, and they're going. I don't think Blizzard foresaw that, and Take TV definitely didn't foresee the Contenders. Because the information about this just broke, 4 days ago, 5 days ago? And even before then, I think it was an idea that was still in its infancy, just a few weeks out. So it's a lot of catching up from both sides. Yeah. And I think this was the nice way to be able to like bridge it and make sure it works and make sure that Cloud9 is represented. Because it would be really sad to see if Cloud9 didn't actually make it into the group stages, even though most people are already expecting it.
Same for Rogue and Envious as well, right? They actually get an even bigger leap. They're playing in Apex and they're basically tied up in Korea the whole time. So they don't just miss out the minefield. They literally miss out the entirety of Season 0 and just get placed straight in Season 1, which is going to be... when is that? That's a long time away as well, I think. So, you know, these teams might not even be... I mean, they're still going to be in the top 8, I think, but you never really know. And Envious have dipped down to the point where they have looked like they're been a weaker team. And Rogue certainly, I mean, if triple DPS goes out of the meta or something, you can see, I mean, you see this kind of up and down. So
sure,
that one I think is more of like an advantage. It's a massive advantage just go directly into Season 1. But again, it's like it would be far worse if they weren't invited, right? It would be just dismissing 2 of the top teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. In the end, those are teams that you really want involved, especially as this is kind of going forward and feeding into Overwatch League, even if not directly this year, but eventually it will be. It's that foundation, which leads me to my next question, Sideshow. How do you feel about this? If Season 0 and what we know about Season 1 is what it ends up being, is this a a solid foundation for a sustainable path to Overwatch League, in your opinion? I know there's a lot of questions and things like that, but we like sweeping generalizations and huge predictions on the podcast.
Generally, yeah, I think it is. I mean, we don't know what the format of the tournament is at all, unless I'm missing something that has been announced. And we don't know, like, the format it'll take in terms of, like, is it a tournament or a league, or was that kind of thing. And the season 0, I believe, is all online. I'd like to see it have like an offline portion, which I believe season 1 is going to. It has like offline finals, which is really cool. And I think in a sense necessary to be able to determine who are actually the best teams. And in terms of the way that it interacts with Overwatch League, it's like you've got the Overwatch League just sat at the top, and these two things do not have any communicating channels. It's not like there's a direct promotion and relegation system like there is in the LCS, or like there is even in Apex, where you have Apex Challengers, and there's a direct promotion and relegation tournament between them. This is more of a sense of these teams and these companies are going to be buying into the Overwatch League and reserving their spots in a franchise system, and they want the best talent possible. So where can they go and find the best talent possible? Go and find it in Contenders, because these are the guys contending, trying to work on proving who is going to be the best, the Overwatch team that isn't competing in Overwatch League. So I can definitely see situations where the Overwatch League, like the guys who are at the bottom of it, are picking up either teams wholesale or picking up the best players who look like that from Contenders. I think it's a great system and a necessary system as well.
Got it. Cool. Man, there's so much I want to dig into, but there's one more thing. Jamerson, do we still have you here with us?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Cool. I still got your audio. Your audio is great. Your video is gone. It's fine. We'll make do. But I do want to ask you, there is one barrier to entry here going forward, and it's going to be the teams must be Masters Plus players. Do you think that barrier to entry is too loose, too restrictive, totally arbitrary? Do you have any thoughts on it at all?
It's just going to cut down on the overall initial teams signing up, right? Because right now it is completely open. That's why we have upwards of 800 teams registered for this event.
I have 3 teams myself, yeah.
Going forward, it's just a decrease on that number, make the logistics a lot more feasible. One of the things that I believe they're planning to do with Contenders, from what I've seen, they're going to be recording off-stream games. And so they want to be able to put out as much content as possible, not just stream it all, but also get it on YouTube and be able to, cover as many games as possible. And it's going to be very difficult if, let's say, you've got Selfless and Immortals like playing games throughout the entire bracket and trying to qualify and everything themselves, and everyone is interested in like Selfless and Immortals, and they want to be able to see those games. So just logistically, it makes a lot more sense to have that in there, just to limit the amount of teams to be able to increase the chance of covering as much as possible.
I think the other thing to add to that as well is that they've said right from the beginning that they want a way of tying your season rank into the path to Overwatch League. And so if it is just open, there is no incentive then to actually perform super well in ranked throughout the season to be able to like have that as your beginning step to the pathway, because you could literally just, you could mess about and play, a Torbjorn attack and just sit and spawn and build your turret or whatever the whole game and still be able to perform well in a team and play scrims and stuff. So it's Blizzard's way of tying their ranked system directly into the path to the Overwatch League, or at least the path to the top of Contenders, which is what they've said they were going to do right from the beginning when they announced it at BlizzCon. They said that, if you're competing at the top of the ladder, you're going to be the people that we want. So that's interesting. That's something that no other game does so far.
Yeah, that is. I haven't really thought about it that way. So that's really cool. Before we jump on, I don't want to keep you too late. I know Sideshow, we're coming up at like 3 a.m. there, so I don't want to keep you too much later. But any other like last words about the new league and about Contenders and kind of just your overall thoughts about it into it? Like, Jamerson, are you 10 out of 10 excited about it? Are there things that you're hoping to see more of going forward? I know that's kind of
I'm definitely excited for it. You know, a lot of people were wondering exactly. I'm still actually confused as to how the combine is supposed to work. This seems like a much more accessible system, a much more natural system to progress into the Overwatch League than however the hell the combine was supposed to work. I mean, I'm not from traditional sports, so that was just an alien kind of topic for me. But this is an important way to keep teams and organizations and sponsors invested in Overwatch League while not having to commit, you know, the full $5 million, $10 million buy-in for a franchise. It gives them some sort of revenue output, right, with being able to have their players' contracts bought out. It's a nice way to just keep these teams in. And I think that was the most important thing, especially with everything that happened in the last month and a half with all these organizations actually leaving Overwatch and taking a step back. I was telling teams this, just give it about another month and you'll have your incentive to actually stay in Overwatch. But, you know, they jumped the gun a little bit here, and now you've got this really good ecosystem set up now for the smaller organizations to actually have a presence in Overwatch.
Well, and these sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. After you.
Oh no, I would love to hear your thoughts first before I ask one more question.
Okay. All right. So my thoughts on the Contenders are it's a good system, and I think people I don't know, it's weird. People are super optimistic about what they want, but if you look at other developers within the esports space, if they're doing things right, that is reason for a massive applause most of the time. There are a lot of things that a lot of developers get pretty wrong, and a lot of criticism leveled at a lot of them. And this system looks like, on paper, it's got a really good structure, and the way that they've accommodated it in existing teams, and they haven't screwed over anybody who was competing in other tournaments and stuff like that. This is all reason to be very content, satisfied with the way that Blizzard seem to be running it. The other thing as well, though, that they haven't announced that is going to be incredibly pivotal is how Season 1 then relates to Season 2. Because I assume we aren't going to have a Season 1.5 in the same sense that we have a Season 0, where it's just like mad open qualifiers, and then if you come top 8 in that season, you move on. So there must be some kind of promotion relegation, in some sense, a connecting channel between Season 1 and Season 2 that they haven't announced yet. And that is also going to be then really important for how teams either stay at the top or new talent comes in. This is almost going to be more important than the way that Season 0 itself is structured, because that only gives you top 16 and then top 8 teams.
Yeah. Wow. Dang, you guys are deep. I have a lot more to freaking learn about Overwatch esports here. I'm so glad we had you on. That's going to do it for our discussion on Overwatch League. Or not Overwatch League, but Overwatch Contenders, the development league for aspiring Overwatch League and professionals. So,
time is money, friends, and we're almost flat broke.
We got to get out of here. I've kept you guys too long already. Thank you so much to both Jamerson and Sideshow for being here. Before we get out of here, though, there's a few things that we want to do. First, Sideshow, I've got a quick lightning round for you of some questions that we want to get your answers to. You got to keep your answers quick, but we're going to go ahead. These were submitted by players in our Discord and on Twitter, and what we came up with as well. So first, who's your favorite Overwatch player?
I really enjoy watching Taimu, actually. He
Fair
pops
enough.
off. He's got like the banter as well. He's the real deal, man.
I would 100% echo that, as long as I can say that Mickey has to be in the background making comments about it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
not bad as
Taimu!
well. And Harry Hook's very funny.
Yes, it was so funny.
The hype man.
Second one, who do you think is the best team right now in all of competitive Overwatch?
I'm gonna have to go with Lunatic High, I think, but the game is literally coming up. Is that tomorrow or something when they play against Rogue? And if they lose more than like 3-1 or 3-0, they're literally out of the tournament. So we could have a weird situation where my best team is not even making it through to the playoffs. But I do generally think at the moment they're the best team in Overwatch.
Awesome. And I saw Jamerson give the 2 thumbs up there, so I'm going to take it as he agrees. Third one. Who is the strongest hero, in your opinion, the most formative hero in the competitive meta?
At the moment, and I think for a while now, I think it's actually been Tracer. I think Tracer has been the strongest hero. Like the teams that have really good Tracers have been fantastic.
Awesome. So Tracer, Jamerson, I want to get your thoughts on this one. Do you have any thoughts? I know you haven't had any time to go through these. Would you agree with the Tracer answer, or would you think another one?
When have you not seen a Tracer in the meta? She's always been around, consistent since way back. The tournaments were taking place in beta. She was always there. We saw like the double Tracer compositions coming up pretty frequently before Genji came on out, and before we had single hero limits. She has that high impact ultimate that doesn't need to get set up, high mobility, sustainability. She doesn't really need that much support from the rest of her team. Yeah, that's why we're seeing so many Tracers going off. Sinatra like being one of those staple names nowadays because of his Tracer play.
Cool. All right, this one's kind of a weird one. This is almost like it's kind of a weird question, but Sideshow, if you could trade lives with an Overwatch hero from the day, so you can live the life of an Overwatch hero for one day, who would it be?
Man, so many of them have problems. So many of them have tortured pasts or some sense. I mean, can I avoid battle? I guess I'd just be Diva. She plays video games, right?
I'd do Diva, the same thing, but have an awesome, huge mech.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
She can live stream, IRL stream from her mech. Like, how do you not get jealous of that?
Probably gets better internet than I do in this shed, anyway.
You've also got a like a holster for your Mountain Dew and Doritos, so it's also very good. All right, last one. Who is your favorite Overwatch streamer? So you're chilling out. There's no tournaments going on. You want to watch some Overwatch streams. Whose channel are you going to? Besides Jamerson's, of course.
It might be a weird one because it's not like I'm watching the gameplay, but this shows how much of a nerd I am, or an analyst, I guess. I love Bishop. He's the analyst of Cloud9. He's the coach of Cloud9, and when he breaks down maps, he's very articulate. He's lived for like 13 years in North America and has a fantastic mind for the game. So I really enjoy watching it. He's also really funny. He was cosplaying as I don't even know who it was.
Kakashi.
Mental man.
Yeah, but the Kakashi cosplay, that was fun.
I love him. He's brilliant.
That's awesome. Amazing. All right, well that's it for the lightning round. You did really well. I was really worried about that one. You're the first guest we've done that with. Based on how that went, I think we're going to do it in the future. Before we get out of the show, out for the show, we do have one bonus drop this week, and that was the streamer showdown earlier today with Jeff Kaplan, Seagull, Doa was hosting, Muselk, thank you. And it was really, really awesome. Head on over to twitch.tv/ChanmanV or youtube.com/ChanmanV to watch the VODs. It was pretty funny. You're not going to learn anything deep. You didn't see any Doomfist reveals, but seeing Jeff Kaplan play a game show with like Seagull, it was a lot of fun. So make sure to check that out. And of course, as always, send us your emails to thepayload@BlizzPro.com. I lost my patron email, Jimmy. So I apologize. I know, dude, I'm telling you, I wasn't ready for this, but we do have 2 iTunes reviews, both from the USA, one from Dazzle167 and one from Vader. Thank you so much for your 5-star reviews. You can rate the show 5 stars and we'll talk about, we'll say your name on the show every time you leave a 5-star review in any country. Right here on the show. We did get a couple of new patrons. Actually, sorry, one. Patrick L. Welcome, new patron Patrick L. to our Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/Payload Podcast. Did I miss another one?
No. You know what happened in Patreon land though? that unlocked our merch store at store.blizzpro.com.
Oh, yeah.
You can now get Payload shirts over there.
There you go.
So go check that out.
Awesome. They look pretty good. I like mine. I have a Well Met and a Payload shirt, and I wear it quite a bit. I have my Zarya pocket shirt this week, though. It's a little Zarya and a little pocket. Pretty pumped about it. All right, well, let's go ahead and get out of here. So when we close out the show, we always tell you where you can find everyone, anything else that we have coming up. So first, Sideshow, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute blast. If I could do the show at like 10 a.m. our time and have you on this show every week, we absolutely would. But where can people find you? Pimp all your stuff, everything. Give us it all.
My Twitter is @Sideshow Gaming. Normally post most of my stuff up on there. Otherwise, my writing can be found at over.gg, all of the news stuff, and it's got, I don't know, rankings, and you can check out all the matches coming up and everything and interact with the community there. It's a fun little site.
Awesome. All right, Jamerson, you're up. What about you? Where can people find you? What do you got going on? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so all across social media, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, hell, even Snapchat if you want to find me there. I don't use that really. It's just going to be @JetSetJamerson. And yeah.
Awesome. I follow JetSet Jamerson and all those things. Should subscribe to him on Twitch too. Last but not least, Jimmy, what are you up to this week? And shout outs, and where can people find you?
Yeah, just feel free to find me at DJTyrant on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Snapchat as well. But I'm like Jamerson, I don't use it very much. But yeah, you can find me there, and I'll link to whatever I'm doing that week. I'm trying to get back into streaming.
Good.
I did stream a little bit of Overwatch today. I finally won a 1v1 thanks to those new rules. Being able to use McCree against I don't know who it was, but it was a uneven matchup to say the least. So I was able to win that. But yeah, check me out there, and that's where I put all my stuff. So yeah,
Nice.
have a good rest of the week.
Awesome. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, or just go to KickedTripod.com and you can find everything else there as well. That's going to do it for us for episode 68. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. Again, thank you so much, Sideshow and Jamerson, for being here. It was an absolute delight to have you. We record the Payload live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. And you can find us on Twitter at WellMetPodcast. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.